Tonight, a protest against the Winnipeg Police Service after a First Nations woman was struck and killed by a police vehicle.
In this era of reconciliation, First Nations are still forced to fight for basic rights that other demographics in Canada enjoy.
And the Shamattawa First Nation in Manitoba has filed a class action against Canada for years of unsafe drinking water. Tanse, good evening. I'm Cree. Welcome to APTN National News. We'll take you to the protests in Winnipeg, but first, September 4th marks the second anniversary of the tragic mass killings on James Smith Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. Earlier this year, an inquest into the stabbings on James Smith issued a total of 29 recommendations to the RCMP, Corrections Canada, the federal public. Similar event in the future. Since the end of the inquests, the James Smith Cree Nation has worked on all of the recommendations it received. One of the recommendations was to ensure that all houses have numbers and streets have proper signs. This has now been achieved. The community is also developing a detox center, a wellness center, and as of today has engaged a new consultant to advance self-administered policing. Chief Kirby Contestant says that despite challenges, he hopes the James Smith Cree Nation's efforts will allow everyone to flourish.
Now this train is starting to move. It's going to take a lot of time and effort to keep it going.
In the wake of the brutal killings of 4 Indigenous women in Winnipeg by a serial killer, the Manitoba government says it's exploring options for increased monitoring and surveillance of garbage trucks and landfills. The province has issued a request for proposals to explore GPS monitoring of garbage trucks. The province says it's an effort to take further action to help police investigate crimes while ensuring Indigenous lives are given the value and dignity they deserve. The process is expected to be completed by the summer of 2025. The family of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron, whose remains are believed to be in a landfill north of the city of Winnipeg, welcomed the news, saying it was an initiative they pushed for. As the federal government fights in court to deny First Nations a right to safe drinking water, today the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs announced at a press conference they are supporting the Shamattawa First Nation. The Shamattawa First Nation filed a class action against the federal government 2 years ago for failure to provide safe drinking water. According to Shamattawa Chief Jordan Hill, his community has been on a boil water advisory for 6 years. He said instead of providing a basic right, Canada's lawyers continue to fight in court. Dennis Whitebird said the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs stands in solidarity with all First Nations fighting for clean water.
The federal government's position that First Nations do not have a right to safe drinking water on their reserves contradicts its efforts to pass Bill C-61, which aims to enshrine the right into law. This contradictory stance is deeply troubling as Canada continues to fight with First Nations in court on every issue of clean drinking water. And in this era of reconciliation, First Nations are still forced to fight for basic rights that other demographics in Canada enjoy.
It's been 25 years since the landmark Gladue decision, where the Supreme Court of Canada found ongoing colonialism plays a role in high Indigenous incarceration rates. Since then, judges have been obligated to apply the Gladue principle as a means of trying to reduce these rates. But a new report finds 25 years later, Gladue is not living up to its initial promise. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story.
Hayden King of the Yellowhead Institute is one of the co-authors of the report, which looks specifically at how Gladue principles have been applied on 6 nations of the Grand River in southern Ontario. He says neither Indigenous perpetrators nor victims of crime are being well served by current Gladue implementation.
I mean, people were really hurt by their pass through the criminal justice system and the lack of justice that communities and families are receiving in the system. And I think that's on the one hand, and on the other, it's the fact that we continue to see these incredibly disproportionate rates of incarceration among Indigenous peoples.
The report identifies 4 key findings which are driving the poor results: disorganized Gladue processes and lack of information, limited resources for rehabilitation, restoration, and Gladue workers, rise of Indigenous identity fraud in Gladue applications, and failure to support victims, families, and communities. Paula Hill is the other co-author of the report, who has worked in the Six Nations justice system for over 20 years, including as a Gladue report writer. She says it is not uncommon for an accused to falsely present themselves as Indigenous in the hopes of getting bail.
The court itself, like the justices of the peace, they struggle to even know what to ask. And so when somebody identifies as Indigenous, the justices of the peace tend to just accept what they say.
Six Nations Police Service Chief Darren Montour adds perpetrators take advantage of Gladue to get reduced sentences.
Those accused who commit these serious offenses know that they're going to get a reduced sentence based on their Indigenous heritage. And to me, that's taking advantage of the justice system. And they promise this, that, and the other thing in the world, and like a month later, then here we go again. It's a revolving door. They go.
Jonathan Rudin is with Toronto-based Aboriginal Legal Services that has handled a number of Gladue cases. He says he would like to have seen the report take a broader perspective, looking at how different provinces are applying or failing to apply Gladue.
In a number of provinces in Canada, you can't get a Gladue report. So while the report talks about problems with the reports, getting them, and certain other issues in provinces where they're available, it doesn't mention that in, for example, Manitoba and Saskatchewan, there are no Gladue reports at all available. And those 2 provinces are a real driver in the increase in Indigenous people coming into prison.
In the end, Hill says there is only so much the justice system itself can do when it comes to reducing Indigenous incarceration rates, and there's a serious need for improved intervention programming.
We are seeing a higher prevalence of mental health and addictions, and it's more like complex trauma that we're hearing about. The severity of mental health and addiction are literally off the just through the roof.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
The NDP has announced it is pulling the plug on the supply and confidence deal it has with the Liberals. The deal gave stability to the minority Liberal government and helped keep Justin Trudeau in power. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh made the announcement in a post on X. Take a listen.
Today, I notified the Prime Minister that I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement. Canadians are fighting a battle for the future of the middle class. Justin Trudeau has proven again and again he will always cave to corporate greed. The Liberals have let people down. They don't deserve another chance. There is an even bigger battle ahead. The threat of Pierre Poilievre and conservative cuts from workers, from retirees, from young people, from patients, from families. He will cut in order to give more to big corporations and wealthy CEOs. The fact is, the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people.
The deal was signed in March of 2022 and was set to expire in June of 2025. The move means the Liberals will have to look for political support on a case-by-case basis now. It could also set the scene for an early election. The Prime Minister says his focus will remain on issues impacting Canadians.
An election will come in the coming year, hopefully not till next fall. Because in the meantime, we're going to deliver for Canadians, and the contrast with a conservative leader that wants to cut dental care, cut the school food program, cut insulin for through pharmacare, cut the programs that Canadians are relying on to help them through this difficult time. Well, that'll be a political decision that Canadians get to take in an election. But in the meantime, I'm not letting down Canadians, and I'm going to stay focused on them.
We have to take a short break, but when we return, dozens of community members in Winnipeg gathered at the iconic Portage and Main intersection today. We'll bring you that story when we return. Welcome back. A peaceful protest calling for accountability after a woman was killed by a police cruiser on Monday was interrupted by an aggressive driver. Sav Jones has more on the event and what happened.
Dozens of community members in Winnipeg gathered at the iconic Portage and Main intersection today, calling for police accountability. That's because Winnipeg police officers hit and killed a First Nation woman Monday night while driving a cruiser in a local splash pad park near downtown. Tammy Bateman was in her 30s and living in an encampment at the riverbank in Fort Rouge Park. WPS say they were dropping off a different individual to the encampment when they say they collided with Bateman. Police provided her emergency medical care, and she was transported to hospital in critical condition where she succumbed to her injuries.
The police shouldn't have did what they did, because what are they doing traveling through a splash pad that fast? The police need to be held accountable for what they do.
Bateman's death is being investigated by the Independent Investigation Unit of Manitoba, or IIU, but some demonstrators feel that won't necessarily lead to accountability. They marched from Portage in Main to the WPS headquarters looking for answers.
You know, we're here because we want answers from the police. The police continue to fail our women. They're here to protect and to serve. What the hell are they doing driving that erratic in a park? Something needs to be done, and it can't be our police investigating the police.
Assembly of Manitoba chiefs released a statement calling for transparency during the investigation. A quote from Grand Chief Kathy Merrick reads, "Too often the IIU has failed to hold police accountable for their role in the deaths of our people. Aisha Hudson, William Amo, Janine Walker, and John Etawakapow are just a few names on a long list of victims for who the IIU has cleared police of contributing to their deaths. What took place Monday night is not merely a set of tragic circumstances, and it is hard to see this most recent situation as anything other than police involvement leading to the loss of life." At a press conference Tuesday, WPS Acting Chief Art Stannard commented on how this will affect the public's trust in WPS.
It's a step back. We work very hard and we pride ourselves in building trust and building relationships with everybody in Winnipeg, all communities, all people in Winnipeg. It's a step back. It's a step back because we can't answer their questions right now, and they're seeking answers right now, and we just can't answer that.
Emotions were high throughout the event. The start of the protest was peaceful, filled with drums, singing, and dancing, but things took a sour turn with an impatient driver. While police had blocked off some streets near Portage in Main, some traffic was still let through. Volunteers used their bikes and bodies to protect the demonstrators, and one driver appeared to take advantage of the situation. One volunteer caught it on camera before being hit. Multiple people were hit. We spoke to the volunteer who caught the footage soon after.
That's why there were a few folks in the community who was like, we're going to, help make sure we are rerouting traffic because the police weren't here to do their job. And the reason why we're here is because the police killed somebody,
MMIW G2S advocate and march organizer Barb Guimond says she doesn't want that violence to take away from the demonstration's message.
This is supposed to be a peaceful protest. We're supposed to be here for the family. That shouldn't have happened at all, and I'm sorry about that. And I'm sorry to the young girl that got hit by the guy.
Sav Jones, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg police say they are investigating that incident during the rally, according to a police press release, as a form of de-escalation, and at the request of organizers, police were strategically placed out of view and vehicle access to the intersection was limited. Police say a motorist entered the intersection where he had a quote, altercation with several of the protesters, including a cyclist. Police spoke with the cyclist who declined medical attention and further police involvement. They say all other protesters involved in this matter left prior to police arrival. The driver of the involved vehicle remained at the scene. So far, no charges have been laid. Last month, we brought you a story about an Indigenous consortium's plan to purchase the North's biggest telecommunications provider from Bell Media. But as Sarah Connors tells us, a public interests group request to learn more information about the sale has been denied.
There's not much information about an Indigenous consortium's plan to buy Northern Telecom's provider Northwest Tel from Bell Media, and that's not about to change. The Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, or CRTC, sided with Bell and Northwestel that details of the planned transaction should remain confidential.
I don't think that the public will get much information. That's the real loser here.
In June, 60 North Unity, a group of Indigenous development corporations led by Yukon First Nations Telco, Dinniday Investments in the Northwest Territories, and Kitikmeot Corporation in Nunavut, announced they would be buying Northwestel from Bell for up to $1 billion. News of the sale caught the attention of the Public Interest Advocacy Center, or PIAC. They say telecommunications is critical for the North.
Population up there is growing fast, actually, and all sorts of new developments, and people need, for, like I said, for emergencies and stuff, it's sometimes more critical there. So I would hope that it's a public trust thing.
The proposed transaction also caught the attention of the CRTC, which asked for financial details of the sale. Bell filed an abridged version of its answer for the public record, something it has the right to do under the Telecommunications Act to keep sensitive information confidential. But the PIAC said that wasn't fair to Northerners and asked the CRTC to make an exemption to make details of the sale public.
And it could be the best thing in the world for everybody. I don't know. Or it could be a mix. It's just doing it in the dark for such a big, major, important essential service is, I think, the wrong way to go about this.
Bell refiled its answer with headings and names of documents as requested by the PIAC, but argued it had a right to withhold information about the sale. Last week, the CRTC agreed. It wrote to the PIAC stating, disclosure of the information could affect ongoing negotiations or allow competitors to anticipate Northwestel's business strategies. As such, the Commission determines that no further disclosure is required by Bell Canada and Northwestel in this case. Lawford says it's now up to the Competition Bureau to approve the deal.
Because I'm not sure the Competition Bureau will do as much as the CRTC. They usually work in a secret way.
Bell and Northwestel say they agree with the CRTC's decision and that it's standard practice to keep competitive information confidential. Representatives for 60 North Unity say they realize there's interest in the sale and they'll have more details to share in the future. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Indigenous people in BC will have more access to culturally safe primary health care in the future. On Tuesday, the province of BC and BC's First Nations Health Authority announced it is moving ahead with 13 First Nations primary care centres. 10 of those centres will be ready to welcome patients by the fall, and the centres will be located in various First Nations in the Gitxsan and Treaty 8 territory. They will provide primary health care, social services, and Indigenous health supports. BC's health minister says the centres will help eradicate Indigenous-specific racism in the healthcare system. A First Nation in southwestern British Columbia has removed a chief for alleged misconduct. Former Chehalis First Nation chief Ralph Leon Jr. is accused of unauthorized or unverified spending, pay advances, excessive technology purchasing, and failure to attend critical meetings. On August 27th, following an investigation, Chehalis First Nation Council met with Leon Jr. and gave him a chance to respond to the allegations. Council then determined that the allegations were substantiated. On August 30th, Council unanimously passed a resolution to remove the chief in accordance to its custom election code. A short break now, but when we return, we got your photo of the day and weather is up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Check out this picture of the northern lights across the sky above Norway House, Manitoba over the Labor Day weekend. What an incredible sight to behold. A big thank you to Toby Wilson for sending that in. Send us your photos to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over to the east. Charlottetown 26, Fredericton 27, Cartwright 26, La Grande River 9, Saguenay 29, Gaspé 28, Peterborough 24, Sault Ste. Marie 24 as well, Timmins 25, Sioux Lookout 14, 15 in God's Lake, Puckatawagan 14, 18 in Winnipeg, Barons River 18 as well, 24 in Swift Current, Yorkton 20, Orange 18, Stony Rapids 17, sunny and 20 in Fort Chipewyan, Peace River 27, 29 in Medicine Hat, 26 in Red Deer, Vancouver 24, Kamloops 35, 28 in Prince George, Dease Lake 16, Watson Lake 19, Mayo 19 as well, 16 in Yellowknife, Wrigley 21, Sax Harbor 10, Colville Lake 16, Chesterfield 7, Baker Lake 11, and Iqaluit 6, Clyde River 4. Canadians are in for a mixed bag of weather as forecasts say warm and cool temperatures will drag across western provinces in the coming days. Temperatures in the eastern prairies are 5 to 10 degrees cooler than the daytime highs on Tuesday. Air quality warnings have also been expanded across Saskatchewan and Manitoba due to wildfire smoke, according to Environment Canada. A haze will move eastward towards northwestern Ontario through Wednesday, along with severe thunderstorm watches. The warning said wind gusts could climb to 90 kilometers an hour and storms could produce toonie-sized hail and heavy downpours. And that's your evening newscast for this Wednesday, September 4th. A big welcome back to school for all the students out there. Study hard. We'll be back with more stories for your midday newscast tomorrow. Make sure to join us then. From everyone at APTN National News, hi miigwech, masicho. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again. Ekse.